Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Urban Institute for those who are here in person, and welcome to this event for those who have joined us online. This is Lessons on Collecting Data and Driving Change to Support Student-Parent Success, and we are so pleased to be sharing some fabulous insights today from an effort that has been going on for several years with some fabulous college partners. So a few pieces of housekeeping before we get into it. Today's event is being recorded, and the recording will be posted online at the URL that you see here in the coming days. We'll also email the link to all who have registered. The biographies for today's speakers and their slides are available on the event page, and also our virtual audience is very welcome to submit questions using the form shared in the chat. And those of you in the room can also scan the QR code to access the form. So please feel free to put in your questions. We appreciate the opportunity to make this an engaging session. We also very much appreciate the funders who have supported this project, ECMC Foundation, the Ford Family Foundation, and Lumina Foundation. Always appreciate those who support our work, but any perspectives or opinions represented in this session are our own and do not represent those of our funding partners. So why are we here today? Who are student parents? We talk about student parents, some say parenting students, some say students with children. There's lots of names for this population, but who are they? The latest data from the National Post-Secondary Student Aid Study from 2020 shows us that 18%, nearly 1 in 5 undergrads in the United States have a dependent child. If you add graduate students, it's almost a quarter, that's another million. This is a large segment of higher education today. It represents 3.1 million undergrads, as I mentioned, 1 million graduate students. And this is a key population in thinking about college opportunity and student success. So almost 3/4 of student parents had a non-work study job, working on average 36 hours a week. At the same time, they were more than twice as likely to be enrolled part-time, probably not a surprise, but meanwhile, they were keeping GPAs that were similar to non-parenting classmates, if not somewhat higher. Knowing all of that while taking care of raising an average 2 children, often more than 1 child, and that is 3 heavy balls to be juggling. That means that even though these are promising students who are doing well in their coursework, they are only 17% of parenting students earn a degree within 6 years, compared to 50% of non-parenting students. That means that even after controlling for their demographic characteristics, they are 55% less likely to complete a degree or credential. So this is a population that merits particular attention on its own, and also because there's a large overlap with other priority groups. So as I mentioned, 18% of undergraduate students are parents, but 22% of undergraduates at community and technical colleges are parents, as well as 28% of first-gen undergrads are parents, and 45% of veteran undergraduates are parents. These are populations that we often prioritize in higher ed, and if we can solve the issues that parenting students face in completion, we are solving for every other overlapping population that is disproportionately represented by parenting students. And why should we do that? Well, because it pays off. Supporting student parents pays off. We did research looking at the impacts of moms going back to school on their own and their children's outcomes. We looked at moms not because we don't care about dads, but because the data only tracked children of the women in the original survey. So that's why we're talking about this. But I will say 70% of parenting students identify as female. So mothers who re-enroll in school, on average, eventually, it takes some time, see a $2,800 a year earnings gain. But if they complete a college degree and they did not have it before, it's 3 times higher, $9,200 of earnings gains per year. It takes time for that to manifest, though. So we need to be supportive while they're working on their education. But it's not only for the mothers. For children, we also see children of mothers who re-enroll and complete a degree see gains in reading and verbal scores. They're also 9% more likely to complete high school, 21% more likely to enroll in college themselves, and 38% more likely to get their own college degree. And this data tracked children until they were 29 years old on average, so they're still relatively young adults. Even in that young adult time period, they're seeing earnings gains of $5,600 a year from the children. That can only grow over time. So we're seeing these intergenerational impacts that are positive for families. We also see payoffs for colleges. A lot of colleges have been concerned about enrollment, thinking about demographic cliffs and other things. Well, guess what? There are nearly 31 million parents without a college degree in the United States, and over 1/3, 35% of them, have some college experience. This is a map of the thousands of adults who are parenting who do not have a college degree. In some states, there's millions. That's what the color coding is, those states that have a lot more, partially because they have bigger populations. But it's an important recruitment population for colleges to be thinking about how to serve parents in their communities. Again, many of whom who started an education program but haven't completed their degree or credential yet. And additionally, there's payoffs for states. So we have a QR code here for a study we did looking at the return on investment to taxpayers of investing in student parent supports at public colleges. This study was in Virginia, but we think it applies probably everywhere. We didn't want anybody accusing us of cooking these numbers. We were very conservative. So this is only benefits to taxpayers and increased revenue and decreased benefit costs. And we looked at the impact of targeted supportive programming at public colleges, looking at similar to the CUNY ASAP model some of you all might be familiar with. That for student parents would be estimated to pay for itself $5.36 per dollar spent. If you took that to Wall Street, everybody would want that investment, right? That's a huge payoff. But other interventions also pay for themselves. A $3,000 annual scholarship for low-income parents pays for itself $1.73 per dollar spent. And affordable on-campus childcare, based on the best research we have to date, which still has opportunities to be strengthened, would pay for itself $1.24 per dollar spent. It's the most expensive, but yields a large increase in graduates based on the best that we know. And that doesn't count all the personal benefits to students, those intergenerational benefits to children, or any other benefits that we can think about that relate to having a college degree. But here's the thing. It's hard to support student success when you don't know who your students are. We track which students are veterans, which are first-generation students, who has Pell eligibility or comes from a low-income background, because that way we can target supports for those students. If we don't know who student parents are, it's impossible to be able to apportion supports or target them to students who would most benefit. So I love this quote from the Oregon Campaign for Student Parent Data Legislation: "When you're invisible, so are your problems," because data motivate change. And even if we know averages on a national, regional, even state level, that doesn't help a specific college or program or decision maker say, how does this apply to my setting? Everyone wants to know how many parenting students they're serving, how many could they be serving, what their parenting students' characteristics are, and the trajectories of those students to understand those outcomes, as well as any tripping points or areas of support that help support better outcomes in the long run so that you can understand if what you're doing is working. So, talk about this data, there has been a movement of legislative change. So in case you're, I'm gonna name the states in case your geography is rusty, but we saw actually the first effort to collect student parent data was in Michigan. There was a change to the boilerplate legislative appropriations language that asked colleges to report on their student parents. Implemented in 2020. Unfortunately, it was rolled back the next year because things that are easy to implement are sometimes easy to unimplement. Oregon was the first state to pass student parent data collection requirements from a legislative point of view. And that was thanks to a championship by Michaela Martin and a coalition of advocates across the state. That took many years, but was the first state to do this in legislative process. Illinois followed just a day later. And then California in 2022 and 2024 passed additional legislation for both student parent priority registration that created a de facto data collection requirement, as well as other supports, including a student parent webpage and non-discrimination requirements. Texas took it further. In 2023, the state of Texas passed not only student parent data collection, requirements for non-discrimination, and student parent priority registration, they also created a liaison position that every public institution has to have to help support student parents. And then Minnesota did all of that a year later, plus put some money into the Kids on Campus initiative, which supports college and Head Start partnerships. Maryland also had a one-year data collection as they were trying to work on legislation around this that basically showed that colleges couldn't report on student parents, and so they're working on seeing what's possible from a legislative standpoint. But this is something that is growing because colleges, systems, and states are recognizing how important it is to know who your student parents are and to connect that information with supports. So, when this was all rolling out, the Urban Institute recognized that nobody really knew how to collect the data. Um, there was an interest in collecting this information, but not good practice about how those data, what the data should look like and the best way to collect it. So we developed a college learning community in states that had data collection mandates to help with data development that would inform actions to support student parent success. It's called the Data to Action Campaign for Parenting Students. And if you go to that URL, you'll see a whole plethora of resources, especially the publications and events segment. We've put out a lot of guidance that we think is very helpful, and my colleague Nathan will be speaking about shortly. But this is a nice map of the 10 colleges and systems that we've worked with. In fact, I'm going to put up a list of them right here that we've worked with across 3 states in Oregon, Illinois, and California. Bakersfield College, California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo, California State University Channel Islands, City Colleges of Chicago, the whole citywide system, Klamath Community College, Lane Community College, Rogue Community College, San Diego Mesa College, Southwestern Oregon Community College, and Treasure Valley Community College, who have been partners with us in this work in building knowledge about this important issue. And in that partnership, we've offered data technical assistance, action coaching, and community learning with the college partners, as well as broader, for the broader field, policy and practice insights and opportunities to inform decision makers about where and how data collection and supports to use those data to promote actions that create student success opportunities can make a difference, and how to do that in a way that makes sense. One last note before I hand off the mic. This also spurred the SPARK Collaborative, the Student Parent Action Through Research Knowledge Collaborative, which is a cross-organizational partnership about putting together knowledge insights to support student parent success. There's a QR code there, but this is in partnership between the Urban Institute, the Pregnant Scholar, and Child Trends, as well as a set of student parent co-leaders that are part of a working board. But this is an open space. We want everyone to engage, to share insights about supporting student parent success. And with that, I'm very pleased to hand this over to Nathan Sick.
Great. Thank you so much, Teresa, for that wonderful setting of the stage. And I'd like to also, of course, thank you to all the attendees who are here in person and online. And the biggest thank you of all should go to our Data to Action cohort members who Teresa just introduced, the 10 colleges and their students, because a lot of what I'm about to present, we learned in partnership with them through the Data to Action campaign. We started, again, as Teresa mentioned, with some ideas about what might make good practice and policy, but have, again, really learned a lot. And so I'm just going to give kind of a sample overview here of some of the actual recommendations that we have come up with, which are still a work in progress, but have grown a lot since the beginning of the project. So just a little bit more backstory and history. When we started the Data to Action campaign, we wanted to understand what was already out there. There certainly have been efforts by many institutions and individual organizations over the years to collect parental status. And I think what we were genuinely surprised to find was that we found over 20 definitions that were used in various places. No 2 of them were precisely the same. So you might think of defining a parenting student or a student parent as relatively straightforward, but actually there's a lot of nuance to it. And I'm not going to read all of these, but you can see on the screen that, that some of them have really different criteria. That doesn't mean that they're good or bad. It just means that they might capture different individuals or different people might identify with them. So, you know, in the top right, you see that a student parent means a student who has a child or children under 18 years of age who will receive more than half of their support from that student. Whereas below that, you see a definition that is just, are you a parent of dependent children? So a lot of variation across the field and no one way to go about this. The definitions do vary by some common themes, though. We identified around 5 or 6 themes, depending on how you count, but the first of which is the amount of time a person cares for a child. So many definitions will stipulate that a parent must spend most or more than half of the time or maybe be the primary caretaker of the child. Many definitions use legal or dependent status type language, which can exclude many parenting relationships and also kind of injects that tax sort of a legalese type language into the definition. Many definitions require that students and their children live in the same household. So not just the amount of time, but also a stipulation that they live in the same place, which obviously would not include non-custodial parents or people with perhaps like somewhat unstable or varying living arrangements. Many definitions include a stipulation that it should be legal minors only under the age of 18. And many also will either include or exclude those who are pregnant or expectant. So those are some of the categorizations. While we certainly have our recommendations, and I'll talk about our own personal definition in a moment, there may be good reasons to have many of these requirements, but it's important to acknowledge that the conditions do matter. So this is from 2017. It's an analysis of the survey of income and program participation. So the data is kind of out of date, but it's mostly to illustrate the effect of what happens when you apply these different criteria. So you see on the left there that when you just look at parenting students with children of any age, you're at 5.4 million. But as you add criteria for being in the same household and then for the child being under the age of 18, that number is reduced by about 700,000 individuals nationwide. So those individuals, depending on the definition, might not be considered parenting students at all. So it's important to consider the definition. This is something we've discussed a lot and has evolved a little bit over the course of this project. This is our preferred definition. We're not saying it's the right definition, but this is our operational working definition at Urban, which is that a parenting student is someone who is enrolled in any level of education or training and is concurrently responsible for or imminently will be responsible for providing for a child of any age. They may be a biological parent, step-parent, or unmarried co-parent, adoptive parent, foster parent, guardian, grandparent, extended family member, or sibling caregiver. So this is quite an inclusive definition. This is not necessarily what an actual question would look like, but rather just the definition that you would want or that we feel is a good one to capture when trying to identify parenting students. And I would say it essentially amounts to allowing parenting students to self-identify. So a number of the topics I'm going to discuss here are included in the document you see there with the QR code. We released this last month, and it includes a lot more detail than what I'm going to go into here in this short presentation. We have some sample questions in there. We have sample language for how to introduce those questions. We have some case studies about things that happened during the Data to Action campaign. And we get into some of the more technical weeds about how to actually go about collecting this. So if you're an institution or a policymaker or practitioner who's interested in learning more, please visit the link there. Okay, so some steps that colleges can take through the Data to Action campaign type approach. They can examine their data capacity and reflect on insights. So what's their current capacity? What can you learn now? And what might you like to know? And how could you change or improve that data capacity to capture parenting students? You can document resources that can be shared with students and used to guide further actions. So just a cataloging of what resources you actually have, and think about how the data you're collecting can inform use of those resources. Institutions can also develop specific strategies for using data to take action. So thinking about more than just identifying where differences exist, but also considering how you might be able to use data to take action. So one example of that might be looking at how students fare across different programs and trying to understand where there are programs or policies that are affecting parenting students or other groups of students. Other steps that colleges can take involve developing specific strategies for visibility and stakeholder engagement. So using data and using your actions to try and increase visibility for the topic of parenting students, which, as Teresa mentioned, is not a small group of students at all. It's a very large portion of students at colleges across the country at all levels. Also learn about new best practices to engage students and leverage the students' expertise. And I would also add that through the Data to Action campaign, colleges are not just learning about new best practices, but really helping to formulate what those are. And then finally, codify goals in their institutional strategy. So even if there's legislation that's mandating something new, it's always a good thing for institutions to think very intentionally about how to use the data and about what kind of policies and practices can best support parenting students and allow those to be informed by data. So we actually have kind of come to a recommended data collection practice. This is a work in progress, but this did not exist at the start of the project, and we've really helped come to these recommendations by working with and learning from the colleges who are part of this project. And essentially what it boils down to is that we do recommend that institutions or colleges collect parents or students' parental status at the time of initial application to the institution, so when they first apply. And that gives you essentially, in most cases, a near census of which students are and are not parents coming into the school, but then to also recognize that parental status can change. And many parents do spend 4 to 6 years obtaining their post-secondary degree or credential. So a routine data update, such as through course registration, which happens every term, or something called a nudge, which is like a questionnaire that might pop up when students go to log in. So those are two strategies that, when combined, we've seen schools have a lot of success with in the real world. These have been applied by a number of different colleges in the D2A cohort and elsewhere. And this is a visualization of what that looks like. So you start with your student parents or your parents on the left as they begin their journey. You've got data visibility and supports for success that help them make their way to their credential. But along the way, the colleges can allow them to be seen, the students, and determine whether or not they're parents at application or initial enrollment, which can be state, system, or college level. And that's a one-time data collection. So you get that once, for the most part, when a student first enrolls. But then you can also update that with periodic nudges. So some of the schools that we've been working with have fielded a login questionnaire that goes out every single term, just a very short questionnaire. There's other ways to trigger it, such as over email or via text message or on a student's profile. But you can do that as often as you'd like, and you can use that to update students' parental status as they go throughout their education journey. And then there's also course registration. Not all schools do this, but some schools collect data, some supplemental data, such as about students' contact information or their courses or their major, at the time of course registration every term. And that's an approach that we've seen colleges have a lot of success with and that they can build off of. There are also student surveys, such as basic needs or student perception surveys that can go out periodically and that can help you learn things about students' preferences, their perceptions of life on campus, and their use of supports. And finally, there's external data, such as public data, but not FAFSA, which I'll mention in a moment. And that can be used as often as it's available. So there's a lot of tools in the toolbox, but the three ones highlighted in pink on the top are the flow that we generally recommend. And I know of at least one school that uses all three of those. So a note, before this project started, FAFSA was considered by many to be a very useful information about students' parental status. Because when students applied for financial aid, it did capture whether or not they had dependents. Since then, I would highly recommend checking out this blog, but there have been some changes to FAFSA. Long story short, it is no longer very easy to identify parenting students using FAFSA. And on top of that, many students don't apply for the FAFSA anyways. So we've written about that a lot. It's still an important piece of information, but it's not necessarily a primary source anymore for parenting student data. So the last thing I'll mention is that we always want to pair data collection with student-centered principles. We want to put the well-being of students first, and we want the point of collecting data to not just be fulfilling a mandate, but to support students and to engage them. That can be done through considering the principles of minimizing threats to students and ensuring that the data is always collected for their benefit. It can also be done by sharing power with students, which has been a big part of this project, and listening to their expertise, which certainly did help shape the findings that I'm sharing today in these recommendations. And then also to rely on standard data protections and ensure that institutions are taking good care of this data and not putting any students at risk, and building trust with students when it comes to sharing this information. So this is just a small portion of what we found and what our recommendations are, and we're going to be continuing to build that in the next generation of our work on this topic. You can learn more here. This is a link to our project page with a whole bunch of different information, including the full version of these findings, which are a lot more extensive. And if you're trying to operationalize this kind of stuff, I highly recommend going to look at that. So with that, I thank you. And I am pleased to welcome our keynote speaker today, Tina Chook. Tina has an education doctorate from Stanford University and is an associate professor at California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo, which is affectionately known as Cal Poly SLO. Tina has been a member of the Data to Action cohort, but also an integral research partner in this work, who's been contributing to this work for many years and before the Data to Action campaign as well. And we are very pleased that she is here to deliver our keynote. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Tina. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm a bit old school. I have my notes here, so if I'm looking down, it's because I don't have it memorized. 7 years ago, I came to this work as a faculty advocate for students with dependence. So what is that? It's a position that I created and stuck it on my email. It didn't exist. They're like, faculty advocate, what's that? I was like, oh, I made it up because I wanted to advocate for students with dependence. So I urge every single one of you, you are all here in your role as advocate for students in addition to your job role here today, both online and in person. Also, I come to this work firsthand as a former student myself. I was one of them. I was a student parent trying to piece together childcare, financial aid, and time to study, and a lactation room that didn't exist in the building where I worked. All those experiences shaped not only my perspective, but it shaped my purpose. All those experiences led me to my work of helping colleges and policymakers understand who student parents are, what they need, and what it takes for them and their families to thrive in higher education. And yet, despite our numbers, which Teresa had clearly laid out in the opening slides, student parents remain largely invisible in the data that shape higher ed policy. If we don't count them, we can't see them. And if we can't see them, we definitely can't serve them. And if we can't serve them, we're not only failing students, but their families, the communities where they live, and the future all of us higher ed professionals claim to be building. So when I was a graduate student, I was one of those let's make good trouble. Some people would call me a co-conspirator. Sometimes now I strike fear in my colleagues. They're like, oh, Tina's in the room. We better do our jobs right. It was really important to show my daughter of what joy and persistent looks like. The joy of belonging in spaces that weren't designed for us in the first place. I always remind my colleagues and my students that higher ed is designed exactly the way it was meant to serve. The reason we have student parent data now is because of the advocacy and the voices of student parents. And now we are changing what that higher ed system could look like. That joy, that strength, that sense of purpose is what drives this work. Because student parents don't just survive college, they transform it. And that transformation begins with one simple act: seeing them, counting them, and believing in them. So why does this work matter? That invisibility in the data has real consequences in higher ed, where parents are raising families and building futures for themselves. Without student-level data, we cannot track retention and graduation rates. Colleges cannot justify investments in childcare centers, lactation spaces, family housing, dedicated staffing. And faculty and staff don't have the information they need to design schedules and policies that actually work for students who are raising their families. But when we start collecting data and using it, we see shifts. Things start to change. Student parents are no longer hidden. They don't have to hide their status. They're no longer footnotes. They're becoming a vital part of our higher education story, a story of persistence, purpose, and possibility. And that impact, as mentioned by many others, is multi-generational. Because we know when student parents earn degrees, their children are more likely to also attend college. When families are supported, they are healthier, more stable, more hopeful. And when we help student parents succeed, we uplift entire communities. So where's our momentum and progress? So as mentioned earlier, we see Oregon and Illinois becoming early states to require colleges ask students that if they're parents, And the logo from Oregon's campaign, when you are invisible, so are your problems, should resonate with every single one of us. I'm proud to be a Californian where we've advanced 2 bills that really make transparent the data collection policies and priority registration and financial aid access for our student parents. And these 2 state laws have helped ensure that student parents are not only counted and supported, not only seen, but served, not only recognized, but resourced. It's still an early journey, so not a lot of promises yet, but we're working there. None of these wins happen in isolation. This was a clear product of coalition building of students, advocates, faculty, policymakers, working across differences and to find common ground. Because when we come together for student parents, we remember that higher ed is supposed to do. Our job is to open doors, build opportunities, and create spaces of belonging for every single student in our campuses. We've learned a lot through this Data to Action campaign for parenting students as one of the early cohorts. And our campus has been contributing to shared knowledge and addressing barriers that slow the work, creating a ripple effect in higher ed systems. And I'm proud to say in California, we are a 22 campus system serving 465,000 students. And in the last year, we have an initiative out of our basic needs space to lead this work as a system level. So everything that I've been listening to and hearing, all the toolkits, will be incorporated by our leadership team at the system level that will have guidance in the largest public four-year university system in the country. So we hope California can help lead the way and provide proof of concept of what is possible. Our job is to identify, educate, and mobilize campuses around what we call student-parent servingness. How do we serve student parents on our campuses? And this momentum isn't just in California. What we're seeing is statewide coalition building, like the California Alliance for Student Parent Success, and most recently, New Mexico Student Parent Alliance. So you can see at the state level, there are alliances with multi-level coalitions that are really centering the work of student parents in higher ed. So imagine if every state had an alliance like that, committed to supporting bright futures for student parents and their families. Imagine if every college built data systems that made those students visible in every aspect of their data systems. Imagine if every policymaker saw student parents as a heartbeat of educational opportunity. Yesterday, I overheard this notion of like, we need to have the blueprints. Every single one of us here in person and online, we're writing that blueprint. We're trying to design a system that can better serve our student parents. We are part of this movement, living in real time of what that future will look like. And we are making it real because we've already begun by gathering here today. So thank you. And then I want to call on the panelists to come on, right up. I realized I was supposed to do Q&A, but we'll start here, and then we'll have those extra time for general Q&A questions for all of us. So welcome, everyone. Should we do introductions again? So I'm Dr. Tina Chuk. I'm from Cal Poly SLO, and I'll pass it over to Kevin.
My name is Kevin Relf. I am a student at Lane Community College. I'm also a grantee with this program.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany Jackson-Kairos. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Strategy and Planning at City Colleges of Chicago.
Good afternoon. I'm Katanya Webb-Walker, and I serve as president of Kennedy King College, one of the City Colleges of Chicago.
Great.
Good afternoon. I'm Gail Schul, and I'm the Vice President of Student Affairs at Klamath Community College in Southern Oregon.
Good afternoon. My name is Johanna Aliman, and I am the Basic Needs Coordinator for San Diego Mesa College.
Great. So welcome, everyone. So how this will work is I have a preset set of questions that we'll share with the panelists, and folks in the audience should have an opportunity to also add their questions on an online way. In addition, those online can also add their questions. They'll be curated, and at the end, I'll be able to pull out some of those questions. So feel free, I think, my apologies, I made some missteps in terms of the scheduling, in terms of, hopefully I'm going on the right order. Okay, so we'll start with Kevin. As a student father, how is this effort to collect data and use the data to inform student-parent supports meaningful to you?
Yeah, so my fatherhood means the world to me. The data that we've been collecting at Lane, as well as the other colleges, have really highlighted, the excellence of parenting students, but also it has a story to tell for each and every one of us. And the work we've been doing, it's very critical when it comes to the recognition for families across this country to get the recognition they've been working so hard for. I also am very confident that this program will continue to highlight the future successes and the needs of parenting students in America.
Great, thank you, Kevin. Our second question is general, it's for everyone. How does a focus on student parents advance your professional goals or institutional mission? And we'll start at the end with Joanna.
Hi, awesome, great. San Diego Mesa, our tagline is the leading college of equity and excellence, and we don't take this lightly. And so every day when we come to work, that's what we're looking to do, to be the leading college of equity and excellence. In my role as a basic needs coordinator at San Diego Mesa, the state of California, which we talked about the 2 laws previously, but just by creating the position for basic needs coordinators and mandating that the state, all the institutions, CSUs, UCs, and community colleges all have this position, they also mandated what our role should take care of. And one of those things, it's not just food, it's not just housing, it's also childcare. So in that first thing, they created a position on campus who's supposed to be working with student parents as part of their everyday job. So for me, it's just doing this work is a given. It's part of the job that I signed up to do. And so leading the work on my campus with the support of my other team members has really allowed us to expand the equity work we were doing. We have tons of disaggregated data for all of our student populations. Adding in our student parents was not a heavy lift because we have to collect that data on our student parents on our campuses. We already had that coming in, and so we just added a little click here and there to make sure we were pulling that information every semester. So when students register, we have to get that data, and we know who our students are. And when we know who our students are, as you said earlier, we're able to serve them better. And we're able to follow through with what we're mandated by the state to provide our students. And so for me, for the professional development part, it is just what my job entails. The payoff is seeing those student parents cross the end of the line at graduation and transfer, and some of them with their babies with them, right? Or you'll see the kids in the audience, and so that hug at the end, and you see the little ones, and those kids are remembering this pivotal event. I'm a second-generation student parent. I can remember when my father graduated. I remember going to college with him. My son remembers going to college with me. Those are impactful things, and when you bring your kids on campus and they feel like they belong, we're looking at future enrollment. The payoff of supporting student parents is endless for us.
Thank you. How about for you? How has the focus on student parents advanced your own professional goals and institutional mission?
Sure. Serving student parents is important to me professionally and personally. Like I heard you say, Tina, I was a parenting student. One of my sons is here at the conference with me today. And being in a group like this really drives home the importance of making sure that in service of students, in this case, student parents, we're looking at the holistic student, all of the student's experience. In my professional life as the VP of Student Affairs at Klamath Community College, our mission is to provide access to quality education and to serve the diverse needs of students in the community. To me, that means understanding who our students are, what they bring to the table, both their experience, their talent, their gifts, and their struggles, and the barriers. I heard some conversation earlier about invisibility. If we don't know what the students' needs are, if we don't know their story, then we're limited in our ability to provide service to those students and to uplift our mission, to provide quality access, to make sure that students can be successful, to understand the diverse needs of the students in the community, and then do what's possible to provide resource and student together, to match those things.
Thank you.
From my perspective, personally, I was also a parenting student at the graduate level though, but juggling full-time employment, being a mom, school, it's a lot. And it takes a lot out of you. And there's so many times when you have to make that judgment call about what's priority for me right now. And very often, schoolwork was the thing that had to fall by the wayside. And so just having an understanding of what our students are bringing with them is major. But then when I put on my president hat as the leader of an institution, the onus is on me to make sure that our enrollment is where it needs to be. And over the course of the last 5 years, our enrollment has skyrocketed, and we're now at just about at pre-pandemic levels. However, there's another piece to that. It's not enough to bring students in. We have to make sure that we're sticky and that we're keeping them there. So when we think about retention and completion, those numbers they're critical. One of my colleagues earlier today mentioned, he referenced parenting students falling through the cracks. Well, at Kennedy King College, almost half of our students are parenting students. And so that's not a crack, that's a chasm. We have to make sure that those students are getting the resources and the supports that they need so that they don't quite as often have to make a judgment call and decide to put school to the wayside so that they can focus on family. We have to figure out ways that they can coexist peacefully and that they can be successful while those two things mesh.
Thank you.
Yeah, from a systems level at City Colleges, we have set an ambitious goal for 55% of all of our students, part-time, full-time, spring starters, to earn a credential or transfer within 4 years of starting. And 32% of our students are parents. So we cannot achieve that goal unless we know who these parents are and we provide support for those students. Additionally, we are deeply committed to the city of Chicago and supporting equitable outcomes and revitalizing communities. And as Teresa mentioned earlier, this payout of education for moms specifically is not just for moms, it's for their kids. And so this work is who City Colleges is.
Great.
Yeah, so as a parenting student myself, this work is very near and dear to my heart. As a budding public policy professional in the future, I really want to integrate myself and as much parenting students are in education as possible with making sure that we do have this data available and that people can see it, and that we're no longer trying to fight to get the resources we need, rather being recognized to get the resources that we need. And it's very important that we remain consistent with this project and that we continue the work we've done today.
Great, thank you. During the past day and a half, we talked a lot about innovations, things that we're doing that are new, different, and then we're learning from each other. I'd love for folks to share an innovation, either big or small, that has emerged from the last couple of years of this work that really you think has made a meaningful difference for student parents. And I'd love Joanna and then Katansha to follow.
For me, I don't think there was any one big innovation. It really was just the creation of a team on campus. The creation of our team on campus came from all areas. We have facilities, institutional effectiveness, our Title IX, our financial aid director. We've expanded our task force to include our CARE and CalWorks coordinator and our Dean of Equity, as well as student advisors. That to me is the catalyst for getting all the other things done. If we hadn't had done that one thing, brought together a team that understood the importance of the work, understood how their role plays in supporting student parents, we wouldn't have done any of the work that we've done. And so all those other innovations come from that one innovation. Our administration is completely supportive of this work. They tapped the people that they knew were going to show up and suit up and do everything they could to ensure this work got done. And the dedication of that team was pivotal. And so for me, that is the innovation of innovations.
For us, the innovation that I'm most proud of is figuring out how to leverage existing resources on campus to support our parenting students. And this came to my mind immediately because I'm a former dean of continuing education. So we have a CE unit on campus that offers non-credit programs, non-credit courses. And at one point, maybe 10, 15 years ago, we had a really robust suite of services and courses for kids. Over the years, that focus really has shifted toward workforce development programs, things that were related to supporting industry and getting our students into careers. So we decided to use our CE unit, dust off the old school, kid-friendly courses. And one of the things that we found is that our students, as well as our staff, myself included, on days when the Chicago Public Schools are closed, again, have to make that decision. Do I go to class? Do I stay home with my kid? Do I leave my kid home alone? Like, what am I going to do? And so we decided to launch what we call Young Scholar Days. And that's a day where students can sign up to bring their kids to campus on days when CPS is closed, but they have to come to class. And so it's not just babysitting. It's not just a place to park your kid while you're doing what you need to do, but it's a day full of enrichment activities. So the kids are doing STEM exploration, they're doing career exploration. We're actually exposing them to programs that we have on campus. So we've got an automotive technology program that they think is really cool. We're construction trades, that's also cool to kids. And so it's a way for us to expose them to what KKC has to offer because, to your point, these are our future students. And so let's get them excited, let's get them comfortable about being on a college campus while mom, dad, whoever is going to class. And so that has been successful. We're trying to look into ways that we can expand that pilot program and incorporate more kids because right now we're limited. We're looking only at about 20, 25 children. But what we want to do is try to connect that to the data. So we want to know the parents who are participating in these days, are they actually coming to class more often? Are we seeing any impact on retention, on persistence? And so how does that tie into their success and their successful outcomes? It gives us an in to ask for a little bit more money to support this. It gives us an in to maybe approach some external funders to think about private dollars to expand our parenting services. But it's also just a really fun thing to do for the kids.
Thank you. This next question is for all respondents. So what was the most powerful aha moment you experienced with you and your team while working on the student-parent data and supports? Something that shifted your perspective or changed the course of your work? So this question is around, oh my goodness, I didn't know that, and now I do, and it really reshaped my thinking. And I'll let anyone take that floor, your aha moment.
I'll hop in. I'm not sure if this was the big one, but for me it was the first one. We hired a student parent to be part of our team, not to be the student member of the team, not to be the note taker, not to show up at some of the meetings, but we began planning meetings around our student schedule. We offered the opportunity for her to engage with us virtually if that was better for her and for her family. And we really centered her needs as the expert in our group. We had her join us so that we could learn from her lived experience. So we just started to, every meeting, we would say, how's school going? How's your family? What are the things that are important for you to discuss in this meeting today? What do we need to know from you as the consultant and the expert? And I remember one of the very first meetings, she said, I'm looking at starting this student-parent club. And I asked her, what kind of space can I reserve for you on campus? And I can order food, and these are the things I can facilitate. And she said, we're gonna meet up at the park with our kids. And I went, oh, of course you are. Of course you are. Of course you are. But that was not my vision in the moment. And I just went, oh, yes. Lean into the student as the expert and the partner.
Excellent. Anyone else? Aha moments.
Yeah, go ahead. For us, as an institution that right now, our focus is on adult learners and adults and people who are over the age of 18, age of consent. One of the things that we had to remember and to relearn is that working with children takes more time in terms of reorienting the institutional culture towards servicing children. And so what that meant was that we had a lot of engagement with our attorneys, with risk management, making sure that the kids were safe. Nobody is gonna, we had this grand plan. We wanted to have the kids in the pool. Well, they're not in the pool. So just making sure that you've got the right folks at the table who can help to push things through in a system that isn't necessarily set up to service them right away. And so also understanding that it's going to take you a little bit more time. You know, we thought we were going to roll out Young Scholars, oh, give us a few weeks, we got it together, but it actually took closer to the better part of a year to make it happen. And so just knowing that two different populations are going to require two different approaches.
At San Diego Mesa, we've been doing this work for quite a while. We've worked with another group, Generation Hope, who exposed us to places in the community, public libraries, other institutions, different ways of looking at things. And I think for me, the aha moment isn't really a moment, but a shift in how we see everything around us. And I think with my team as well, I've heard them say, you know, before we weren't necessarily looking at our places around campus and seeing how we can improve those. And now every conversation we have about places and spaces is like, okay, but how can we make this welcoming to student parents and let them know that these are the spaces they could bring their kids to? We created a family resource center, which helped with that, but we also took a meeting room just recently, and it just added a little corner with children's chairs, and we have a little cubby in there that we can put toys and books and coloring activities in. And so those little things throughout campus make a difference, and tell our student parents that they're welcome on campus and tell them that their children are welcome on campus. And so just shifting that isn't one single moment. It's just an ongoing, oh yeah, what about changing tables in the men's room, right? Those kinds of things. So that would be for me.
Mine, I would say, actually came from a conversation I had with Kevin yesterday. We were sitting in this room, and he, you know, as we were thinking about engaging students in a real way, as opposed to having them take notes or, you know, join when they can, Kevin said, you know, we already feel like we need help and that people might be looking at us with bias. And I was taken aback, and what I told him was, no, we need your help. And I think really framing that asset approach of the student, that, you know, we have the responsibility to serve you, but actually the students, you're the ones who know how we should be doing that. And that's really has me rethinking how we're going to implement our strategic plan and get feedback from students and engage them more broadly.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
How about you, Kevin?
Yeah, a big aha moment for me, and really this is a great segue, is that as parenting students, we oftentimes are hesitant to talk to, you know, the faculty or the administrators at the schools. You know, oftentimes if we have a problem, we'll run to our cohorts or we'll run to our classmates, and you know, if we're having difficulties with childcare, and just wonder, how the heck do you guys do this? You know, do you have a babysitter? I need help. And you know, one thing that really opened my eyes with this project is seeing how willing and how able your college administrators are with wanting to help you. And it's a huge thing, instead of, you know, putting yourself in a box and only talking to your colleagues. You know, I challenge and welcome every parenting student to open up and talk to your college and drive and take the actions necessary to start these initiatives, even if there's nothing there at your college. You know, start a student community, start a parenting student club, and really work with the colleges to try and enhance the opportunities you have in your individual situation.
Great. I'll share a little bit of aha. I think we always say data is important, and so without this grant, we wouldn't have been able to create the takeaway, the graphics, the poster that's in the hallway, that's on our website, just the basic descriptive stats. And I'm able to use that to talk to senior level leaders, people in the president's cabinet, because they'll ask me, how many student parents are there? And if I can't give them that answer, that conversation pretty much stalls right there, especially at that senior level. So now they have a number. I have college student parents in every single college, so I can go to all of the deans, the associate deans for student success, and remind them of the supports, the policies every fall that exist for parenting students. Because out of sight, out of mind. I'm like, here's the data, here are our student parents. We weren't able to do that before, because they didn't believe us, because they didn't bump into student parents, because we're a pretty traditional campus. And student parents, from my interviews with them, they would sort of, because of the stigma, they wouldn't share that they were a student parent, because we are a majority 18 to 22 campus where we are. So my aha is like the power of data to move that conversation forward as an accelerant. My next question is, how did the collaboration with student-parent leaders or student-parent co-leaders shape your understanding of this work? And then I'll sort of direct this to Gail, but other people can jump in. This is around collaboration with student-parent co-leaders.
Sure, you heard a little bit of that when I just spoke about our student partner on our team. The only thing that would make this convening more impactful for me, because it's been so great and so positive, is if that person could be here with us. But the exciting news is she's not with us because she's graduated from Klamath Community College, successfully transferred to earn her bachelor's degree, and she's a teacher. And she's in class, right? What time is it in Oregon? She's in class with lovely fourth graders right this minute, shaping them and teaching them and learning from them and doing all of the things that teachers do, right? And getting to know her name is Shai Hanover, and having her work with us as a partner really transformed our group. And you heard me say earlier, we really centered her in the work, but it took a minute for us to figure that out, right? At first, we put out a job description. We said, we're looking for someone who's dynamic and can do these things and wants to be a partner. And students were like, what are you talking about, right? And then we said, no, you all have what it takes. You can join us. And still, students were like, I don't understand what the work is. And then we reached out to faculty and said, we bet you know some killer students, right? That have fantastic skills, that have limitless potential, and they are parents, and we need that perspective to move this work forward. And tell me who you know, and we will reach out to those folks. And Shai was one of the first names that I got from a faculty advisor of a student group. And having that connectedness and also getting the word out to faculty and thinking about this as a campus-wide initiative, not just the small group of folks who are in all of the meetings, right? But the whole campus thinking, right? We're working toward learning more about student parents and improving the way that we're serving those students. And we're doing that by having the students with us at the table and in the planning process.
Great. Do other panelists want to chime in on collaboration with student-parent co-leaders?
I think for us, having the student parent at the table, even though I was a student parent, it was a number of years ago, things have changed. And so hearing what's changed now helps, but it also brings other student parents to the table. When you start highlighting one student parent, other student parents are like, oh wait, we have a voice, we can come. And so we would at times, while we had one person assigned to us, would have a whole group of students coming in and just, let's talk about ideas. And so I think encouraging that, finding ways to support the students in that, whether you're just feeding them lunch. We did a student parent forum and our student parents were like, just feed us. If I don't have to cook today, but there's extra food for me to take home, so put out those takeout boxes. Then they don't have to cook for the kids tonight. Those were the things that made it better and helped us learn not just the difficulties we knew from going to school, but the difficulties today, because today's economy is way different and what the resources available for our students are way different.
I'll share a little bit about our team. I think my work with student parents has always been, this is advocacy work. I'm teaching you how to ask for what you need, demand it because you deserve it. You deserve every space because you are here just like every other student. Don't shrink, and practicing how to ask, how to respond, how to activate, how to mobilize, all those skills that serve them well into workforce. So I think for me, I think of it as like a training ground that I learn from them, and they get to learn these really powerful skills of advocacy that sometimes in the classroom you're sort of learning particular content and discipline. But when this is the core of your identity, the motivation and persistence and the drive is just simply, the seed is already there. So you're just sort of watering it and creating that ecosystem. My next question is really focused on data-driven decision. So what data-driven decision or strategy have already had or would have had the biggest impact on student-parent success, and what makes it so effective? So this is around data-driven decision or strategy, and then their sort of effectiveness, if you can speak to that. And I'll ask Joanna and then Kevin.
Data's how we get stuff done, right? But we need to make sure that we understand what is data. And a lot of us think data is just the numbers. But it's also the qualitative stuff, the stories from our students. It's also the anecdotal stuff we know from doing our work. All that information plays into what our data set is, right? The numbers are great when you're going to the administration, knowing I have 2,000 students who are parenting kids on campus, or they're disproportionately impacted in this way or that way. But when you're talking to your board, when you're talking to your donors, when you're talking to your funders, knowing the success of your student who may have been an immigrant, is raising 2 kids, went through a continuing education program, is now at the college, is looking to do community activities and support things, but just needs some help. And you put those students, you bring them to the table, but you also put them up front. You put them as the experts in front of your administration. They tell their story, and the administration listens to them. I can talk till I'm blue in my face. I can tell them how many students we have. I can tell them this, that, and the other thing. Putting a student in front of them, or if I can do a panel of students, or if I can do a room full of students, so that they are getting their voices heard, that's going to get my administration and my board to do more and support them more.
Great. And Kevin, how about your perspective?
Yeah, so the whole process with this data work has been very endearing to me as a parenting student. It's nice to know that, there's other students just like you that also have the same problems as you or have the same challenges with trying to, finish your education and just discover your place in the world. We all want to have an identity and be accepted, and I think being able to level with the challenges in education and making that your identity and really expressing that to colleges, to administrators, and they're all willing to listen to you is a huge data-driven decision for me. It's very eye-opening to see the critical level of need in America with parenting students, and just how a lot of us has fallen by the wayside. And I think that this data work is huge with driving other schools across this country to take initiatives of their own and follow the example that we've set, and see the diligence and also the excellency that parenting students do have with completing their degrees and completing their classes and working very hard with the limited time that they have.
Great. Do other panelists want to weigh in also?
Yeah, I would love to. So in spring 2024, City Colleges administered the Basic Needs and Security Survey through the Hope Center at Temple. And one of the things that we found was that 50% of our students are experiencing food insecurity. And we look at that for parenting students, it was over 80%. And so we purposefully launched our Food Security for Life pilots at Kennedy King, where more than half of the students are parents, knowing that if we're providing food for them, again, we're also providing food for their families to have a broader impact. And now that we're collecting and updating which of our students are parents, we're also monitoring through the implementation to make sure that we are implementing it in a way that it is serving the students that we are targeting. So we'll be tracking who is taking hot meals, who's visiting the food pantry, who is using the emergency funds, and how. And we want to make sure that parents are using that, and if they're not, intervene to support them to receive those services. I don't know if there's anything you want to add specifically about that.
So we heard this on the survey, but to go back to the last question about how has having student-parent co-leads and really engaging with your student parents informed your work, hearing their stories has been so critical. Going into the work, my initial instinct was, well, you provide care for the kids on campus because clearly that's their biggest need. Well, no, it's actually basic needs and security. That's their biggest need. And so making sure that we're hearing their voices to understand what it is that we need to be funneling our resources into is essential. And so to Brittany's point, we're going to be launching that pilot at KKC. Students have been at the table from the very beginning, from identifying the space on campus where it's going to be to help to mitigate barriers to access of that space to food tasting. So we're working with the Greater Chicago Food Depository, and they were there in the test kitchen to say, you know what, this is going to be a hit with us. No, nobody's going to touch the kale. Leave that at the, So, but having their input is so essential.
It's so great to hear that in California, our biggest allies and advocates are basic needs team.
Yeah.
So we've been in close communication and contact, and how do we roll this out with our student parents? And then this is our last question. So looking back, well, last-ish. Looking back, what do you wish you had known at the start of this work? And what advice would you give others, especially those who are here new to us and online? What advice would you give others beginning this similar journey? And I'll let anyone take the floor.
I think I wish I knew to seek funding right away, because you start thinking about building programs, and this is the second part of a program, right? San Diego Mesa, been building our basic needs since 2015, wasn't mandated by the state till 2021. So we had that kind of getting your donors in, getting your emergency funding set up, getting those processes set up, but getting the funding for student-parent work specifically. We were able to come together as a team, find some resources. We had some money during COVID, block money, retention money. We were able to leverage that, utilize it, do some really great things. But now we have that sustainability question. How do we keep this work going? And so I think I wish I would have thought about that part of it earlier. And now I feel like I'm catching up because I've built this program. I've built these resources, and my team has. And now we're like, how do we keep it going? How do we keep the doors open? How do we keep the spaces available? And so I think that conversation should have come earlier.
I wish I would have known from the beginning how impactful it would be for our team and for our campus and for the colleagues we share with to think about the student as the co-lead, and a position like the benefits navigator. All of our Oregon community colleges have that position. That would have been a really powerful team from the start. And we sort of spent some time going back and forth about, well, it's called data to action, so maybe IR should be the lead. And IR said, no. Who's going to be working with the students? And then Student Affairs said, well, we are, but which one of us? And how do we find the right one? And kind of what's the right pairing? And who's going to be working with the students? Well, we all will. And IR went, no, let's figure this out. So it would have been lovely, and I hope that for the next cohort that they will consider, who is the person on your team that's going to be highly effective at connecting with your student and lifting that person or those people up as co-leads of your team, not just partners, but really in it to win it.
Yeah, if I could piggyback on that, I oversee IR at City Colleges, and we were the people, and Liz and Scott and Umama, who is not able to join us, have really done the heavy lifting of this work. And I think what I wish we would have done is moved from that data piece sooner. I think in IR, and really in our institutions more broadly, we want to make sure that we're right. Like, everyone's an academic, they've got to do the research, and I think we spent so much time figuring out what question were we going to ask and how we were going to do it. And I think we should have moved to that, like, kind of draw the line in the sand, collect the information to make these students more visible so that we could act on it sooner. And I think doing that, I think we would have been pushed to do that more had we been more closely partnered with Student Affairs, where, it could be imperfect.
I think I come at it from sort of a shared governance lens, and I wish that I had convened a team sooner to come to consensus on what we mean when we say that we have this vision to become a parent-friendly campus. It means different things to different people. Obviously, students are at the center, so it means that our students have resources they need to be successful. We didn't necessarily think about it in terms of what faculty or staff need, because in my mind, we're sort of secondary to the student. And so, yes, it means that students should be free to bring their children in for advising appointments, or if they need to seek tutoring, then we need to have spaces where their children can be. Doesn't necessarily mean that you bring your child to a sensitive cabinet level meeting, So like we all have to figure out what it is so we can be on the same page.
Yeah, and as a parenting student, my advice to future parenting students of these programs, and even to faculty helping address their issues, is to not be afraid to speak out, and try not to take too much on at once, and don't be afraid to take small bites and get those small wins like we've been talking about to help push yourself and your team to these bigger, broader goals. Oftentimes with all these struggles you have as a parenting student, it's hard to or it's easy, I should say, to lose sight of really the focus and what you can do with the institution that you're in. And instead, you maybe just want to throw this wall of grievances at these collaborators you have. And I encourage parenting students to just take it step by step and start learning about the process and start really engaging yourself and putting yourself there and doing the steps it needs, showing up to all the meetings, taking the time, checking your emails. That's a big one with students. Check your emails, but really put yourself into the work. Treat it like you would with raising your child. Because essentially that's what you're doing. By doing this work, you're helping to raise your child and you're helping to increase their opportunities in the future as well as your own. And I think it's important to really not lose sight of those small little things that lead up to the overall big goal that we all have and we all want to see.
Great. I do have a closing question. So what are you all most hopeful for in terms of, we're closing out this cohort. This is one of our final meetings that will be in person. And it was 2 years. We did a lot of work. And for some, this work will continue. So I'd love for folks to share, what are they most hopeful for as we head out of DC and we go back to work in our educational spaces? Anyone can start.
For me, it's about sustainability. We've really, I think, nailed the data to action piece. And as a result of that action, we have now gleaned enough data to think about what has worked, what hasn't, what do we want to replicate, what do we want to make sure that we sustain when we think about our budget planning for FY27, what do we want to sustain when we think about asks from private donors. And so I think we have now compiled that second layer of data so we can show that this is actually yielding benefit, it's yielding dividends. We talked a little bit earlier as a cohort about making sure that we have touch points moving forward so that we keep the work alive so it doesn't go away because the cohort period is ending. So I'm just hopeful that the work is going to continue and it's going to grow.
What makes me most hopeful is the team up here and the teams I've worked with in the past, the team out in the audience and online. The number of people who are here who are dedicating time to student parents means we're making a shift. When you're doing this work, basic needs, student parent work, you can feel isolated and alone that nobody else is doing that, but there is a whole team out here to help. And I know for myself, and I'm sure for most of my colleagues, reach out. You want to know what I'm doing? You want to know how I did things like that? I'm happy to answer because you can take that back to your institution, make it fit your campus. It doesn't have to be cookie cutter, but it gives you ideas and you can make it fit in the culture on your campus.
I would say yes and yes to what we've already heard. And I would add that I remain hopeful because I'm connected to students, right? And being able to have a relationship with a student, hear the student's story, and then demonstrate through action that we heard you, right? You told us this is what you need, and now you can see that we're doing the thing, right? That the action is happening, and that there's hope moving forward that can continue. That can mean us staying together as a cohort, that can mean supporting the cohorts and other colleagues of the future, and staying connected to our students and continuing to listen to what they have to say and to believe them when they tell us what they need.
I feel like President Webb Walker really undersold how difficult it was to get these Scholar Days, Young Scholar Days set up. And so one thing I'm really hopeful about is I think we've learned a lot of lessons that are scalable to the system. And so even though only 2 of our colleges participated in this, I'm really hopeful to bring back what we've learned and scale it out across the district.
And what makes me hopeful is the collaboration and really the teamwork that all of these colleges and these institutions and all of these parenting students and administrators all put together, the time, the commitment, all the meetings and the millions of emails. And really it's a beautiful thing because everybody's meeting you on your level and you don't have to prove anything and you don't have to pretend like your institution has all this stuff already prepared and that you're ready to go. You could not know what to do completely. And the collaboration that these teams share will help you drive your goals and drive your plan of action to what you guys really want to do and are focused on as an institution. And I really want to give a special thanks to the Urban Institute and their analysts and their coaches for every one of us that have helped and kind of said, hey, maybe you guys could try this, and give us ideas on how we can interact and engage with our communities and try and obtain more funding and try and obtain more support institutionally, and try and get more local resources to meet needs like childcare and helping with food and housing assistance and things like that. Real things that student parents like myself face on a daily basis. So the collaboration has been wonderful. And I would say to the schools that in Texas, especially, they're preparing for this journey themselves, put your all into it and don't hesitate to say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure what to do. Because with our help, with our collaboration, and especially with the Urban Institute's involvement, they will help you get on the right track and actually help you see the vision that you foresee for your institution.
Great. I'm most hopeful for, 11 years, my daughter's 11 years old, so I started this journey 11 years ago when I gave birth as a new mom. And I literally went on Google, found one other campus, Northwestern, found a student parent there, got on the phone with her and be like, how are you doing this work over there? And then I'm looking around, I'm like, colleagues from all over the country, online. We have a fairly strong building, emerging sort of systems leadership in California. I have colleagues, 22 campuses, who have bought in on supporting pregnant and parenting students. It's incredibly powerful. Student parents can now Google parenting students, students with dependents, and can find a lot more resources than it existed 10 years ago. It existed. We were all just doing our own work, struggling in our own ways, in our own little spaces, not knowing everyone else who was also struggling with the problem. So it wasn't a me problem, it was a system problem that higher ed wasn't designed for parenting students in mind. And I'm hopeful that, when we come back in 10 years, this work will just be simply integrated into how higher ed is designed. That every single role carries that work that supports student success, every single one of our students, and continue our mission in each of our colleges. So I have a couple of questions online, and I'm just going to read them in the order that I'm getting them. They've been curated. And from Molly, how do you recommend pitching data collection to the higher ups? We often encounter hesitation or concern about how data might be used or interpreted. So any one of you guys want to respond to that?
Tell them you're doing a pilot. That's the secret word for everything. I'm doing a pilot.
That's kind of true. I mean, everybody, leaders want to be at the vanguard. We want to be the first ones to do something and to show success. So that's actually not a bad thing.
Yeah. And there's a proof of concept. All of us here, all the campuses that Urban has been supporting, have examples of what that data. So you can say, but so-and-so is doing it. Why aren't we doing it? And look at these campuses, community college, big, small, 20,000 students, 5,000 students, 10,000 students, rural, urban, different settings. It's happening. Also, I just want to remind folks in the room, if you want to scan the QR code, on the agenda, you can also submit questions, and it'll pop up on this fancy iPad that I have here. Let's see. This question is from Allison. What steps can a university take to get student parents recognized as a special population on campus? I can speak briefly to that. I think we have a student group, so I think of student parents as a clear student group like military and vets, Pell eligible. We have in California formerly homeless foster youth. So we have designated sort of student groups that we use in terms of our descriptive statistics and our outcomes. Similarly, we collect data on race, ethnicity, on gender, and other sort of markers. So again, you can take the case that, look, these are campuses across the country who are doing it. There are state laws that are now moving, that you can use if that exists to help you move that needle along. But I think there can be a case made to make this into a student group.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think there's that, and you mentioned earlier, right, having that one pager where you can say to your president, I have like, I think you have 176 parent students, or something like that, where it like is really sticky and people remember and they can think about, like, these are specific people and you can't reach your goals without them. And then I think the other thing that can help you is everyone is always panicking about this demographic cliff. And so we have to serve adults better if we're going to maintain enrollment. And so saying, this is an enrollment and persistence strategy to ensure that we remain relevant is probably your best case.
I couldn't agree more. I always stick enrollment, persistent, graduation rates, bodies in the campus, and it's dollar amounts, especially for senior leaders. I'm going to help you get those students in our classrooms, which raises all those things that senior leaders at the top care about. This question is from Danielle. It says, as the landscape of higher education evolves, what strategies can institutions adopt around to strengthen data protection and uphold public confidence? So this is, I think, regarding sort of data safety and security, because this, in some ways, is a vulnerable population, because especially as we see in different forms of weaponization of data, making sure that using data to advance student learning and student growth. So how might panelists consider that or think about that at their own institution?
I feel like I'm getting the looks as the data person. I mean, I don't think there's a good answer. I think it is a question that everyone is grappling with across the board. And I think, one of the considerations we make is, the benefits versus the risk. And while there is a slight risk in students telling us that they're parents, because we have purposely said we are going to provide interventions and supports to you, the benefits outweigh the risk. And of course, we have a robust cybersecurity team who run like phishing exercises and practices. We have rules around data sharing and suppression of populations when it's a small number. I think those are institutional specific. But I do think that if you have a plan to act on that data, it is worth the benefit.
I also agree. I think, we've made our descriptive statistics public. It's just describing who students are. But our retention and graduation, in terms of outcomes, currently that's an internal dashboard. And only particular people on our campus have access. Because, how you describe how student parents, move through higher ed have huge implications on building whatever narrative is happening. So I think you do have to, exercise caution in how people may misinterpret data in ways that you didn't intend. So I think we take data security and privacy seriously. We follow FERPA, so sort of just exactly, suppressing small counts so that it's not identifiable and that student parents can trust us that, and we have those relationships and they understand how the data will be used to provide services that support their livelihoods.
And I do want to touch on the point you made about the context, because I think the other problem can be if we say, students complete at a lower rate, that can be used to say, you don't support students, as opposed to really thinking about what are the ways that we're approaching this work. And so I think having that qualitative data and that student story to support, along with the asks of how we support those students to make changes, is critical.
This is an interesting question. This is from Katrina, and this is related to faculty and staff. How much do you think having a family-friendly campus extends to faculty and staff? And maybe just a difference of how student parents, what services and policies versus faculty and staff.
It's essential. It's needed. Monday, Chicago Public Schools is closed. I will probably be at home on a vacation day because CPS is closed. And so we have a number of faculty members who are likely gonna, there are gonna be concerns. Our college advisors, the folks who are frontline student servicing personnel, same set of challenges. And so in order for us to really be effective and efficient, we've got to make sure that we're looking out for them too. Right now, it's a question of prioritization and resource allocation. And so the students, that's our primary focus right now, but absolutely faculty, staff, admins are on the list.
I'll share on our campus, we have childcare center, and priority goes to student parents. Once that's filled, then it goes to staff, faculty, community. So I think prioritization of who needs it most urgently, especially around income, that's highly important on our campus. Anyone else want to weigh in on that one?
I'll just add, we say a lot in student affairs at my college that college is a family affair. And when I say that, I mean for all of us who are doing the work together. Obviously, I mean that for students, right? But I also mean that for myself. I also mean that for all of the staff. I mean that for the faculty. The example that you offered, right? School's closed on Monday, so I'm going to be home. When school is closed, I'm probably going to be home too. And I expect that several of the people on the team will want that same opportunity and ability. Well, a couple will be like, please let me come to work that day. But really, what difference are we making and what impact and what legacy if we say, okay for you, but not for you, right? We are all in this work together. So it has to be opportunity for everybody, employees and students.
Great. We have another question from Adrian, and they ask, could you expand on some of the logistical barriers you've encountered while trying to service student parents, data collection aside? So I think thinking about the various supports and the range, because it's across different departments, from facilities, housing, parking, academic services, student services. How do you manage all of those moving pieces? Because it doesn't always just fall under basic needs. So like, how does it actually work, and what are some barriers that you've been trying to remove?
I feel like this one's at me. Basic needs. There are just tons of barriers with going to college for all of our students. And I think it's pivotal for campuses to create the teams, to help their people create relationships. One of the things I'm looking at with the community college system basic needs coordinators, a lot of our coordinators in the state come from outside higher ed. And so when you come from outside and you understand how social work works, but you don't understand how higher ed works, you don't know the people that you don't know, and you don't know who you need to know. And so making sure that within our basic needs teams, we have people who know how the system works, and they know the people, they know who to call up. I can call my financial aid director, I can text him right now. I can call my facilities person, text her anytime. My Title IX person, I've got a problem. And it makes troubleshooting solutions for our students easier. And so it's not just getting to know your student, but it's also getting to know your colleagues and making those relationships on campus that are going to help you help your students more.
Exactly. Our staff member, I see her as a hub. She knows every single person because she's the point of contact that student parents go to that she can then connect, versus a student parent new to the system, not knowing the system, being ping-ponged across multiple. Because student parents are in every facet of our higher ed system. Every single one. Every single one. So I think it's really important for us to think about how do we design a system that includes them and educates, especially now that we have the data. And then we'll close with this question from Tanisha. Are there any barriers besides funding that you foresee preventing you from moving forward with this particular piece of work?
Well, yes. So, but we're getting ahead of it. We're trying to figure it out and mitigate it before it gets too far afield. So our risk management officer, myself, President Sean Jackson of Truman College, who's our sister campus, our general counsel, we have a meeting in the works to try to figure out what exactly is policy, what's practice, what's written, what's board, what do we have to go to the board about, so that we can understand where the gray space is, and if there is no gray space, then how do we restructure so that we can create space to make sure that we are adequately servicing our student parents. So I think that's, for us, the next order of business, so that we can clear any barriers so that we can proceed as we need.
Others? Okay. If not, we'll close it. Let's give the panelists a round of applause. I would like to welcome Kate Westerby up to the stage. She's Research Associate for Urban Institute.
Yes. On this side.
Such great insights. Thank you to our panelists and Tina for keynoting and leading that. So as you all know, right, student parents bring extraordinary determination to colleges. So I was a former student parent for almost 13 years through 3 degrees. So I know firsthand how important this work is. It really would have meant a lot to me to feel more visible and valued when I was on campus. I was 18 years old when I started college, and I had a 1-year-old in tow, so I really didn't share that I was a student parent to many people. So I really am encouraged by all the changes that you all have made, and I really wonder, as an 18-year-old, if I would have flourished in the conditions that you all are creating. So I really love what you're doing. I also wonder if I'd be a little more eager to pick up those alumni donor calls that we all get. So to further illustrate the student-parent experience, we'd like to share a short video about the impact of this work to current student parents. Our amazing researcher and Canva queen, Ariella, put this together. Thank you, Ariella. It features 3 student parents who have been deeply engaged in their college's data collection, family-friendly initiatives. You'll hear directly from them about why this work matters and how their voices are helping shape the future of this work.
Hey there, my name is Kevin Ralph. I'm a student at Lane Community College, and I'm a single father to a 10-year-old little girl. I'm studying to become a public policy lawyer, and working on the Data to Action project with the Urban Institute has been life-changing for me and the future students at Lane Community College. I help lead multiple community projects focused around parenting students and providing more institutional support for them. We worked on focus groups, creating a parenting student section on Lane's webpage, and we even helped with creating more parent-friendly spaces on campus for things like study time, admissions, or parents seeking financial support. We hope to increase parenting student enrollment and completion through the work and advocacy this program has offered here at Lane Community College. Parenting students are vital to achieving real-life perspectives and the challenges that institutions will face with meeting the needs of these types of students. This work will be crucial in providing more support and therefore success in the future with parenting students all across America.
Hi, my name is Mikeela Collins, and I'm a mom of an 18-year-old and an 8-year-old. I'm a recent graduate of the City Colleges of Chicago, Truman College campus. Being a part of a team that helped put together surveys to collect data for students and get the word out has been exciting. It's fun to know that I've been part of a team for a little bit over a year trying to get information and get as much as we can about parents and students so that we can figure out how to better serve parents and students. So as a parent and student, you have to figure out how to be heard, and you want to understand and know that you are being heard and people are listening to you. And I think our leadership on this team has been a very great experience for not only me, but for the team as well, because we've been able to come up with some things and figure out some strategies for other student parents on campus so that that way within the long run it will be a successful campus for all parenting students.
Hi, my name is Lynn Hamblin. I am a parenting student at Road Community College in Southern Oregon. I have 10-year-old twins who have been on this college journey with me since the beginning. I'm currently working on a transfer degree to study public policy at Oregon State University. I think I'm most proud of making sure that this work will continue at RCC through our task force and our parenting student club that we have started.
So I hope you all heard that student parents' lived expertise in balancing class, work, school, family. These aren't just stories of perseverance. They're really powerful insights that can help shape how colleges serve their students. So in the Data to Action campaign, we harnessed some of these insights by building an advisory board, and these students were a part of that advisory board. So with their help, we created the rubric for authentic student-parent engagement, as well as developed a blog where they got to share their key insights about student-parent data recommendations for data collection. And so those are on our website if you're interested in seeing what the student parents had to say. One key recommendation, for example, is that colleges should clearly communicate to student parents why the data is being collected. Students don't just want to add their information without knowing how it will help them. So the students featured in this video are all in this room, so I wanted to get a round of applause for those students. And now we also want to celebrate our 9 colleges in one college system that completed the Data to Action campaign. Your dedication to understanding and supporting student parents through data-driven improvement has really been inspiring. Each of you demonstrated what's possible when institutions commit to listening, learning, and partnering with the students you serve. And so we'll be sharing a certificate for each college for their participation and commitment to student parents. We will bring the certificates to you after the event, so we'll talk about you, but you'll have to sit there and listen to it. So I'm going to start with California State University Channel Islands. So I'm really honored to present a certificate to CSU Channel Islands. They have truly been a pleasure to coach. Where are you? I can't see you in this room. Thank you. It's great to look at you. And so we have this certificate for them. They really took the chance to be authentic and intentional in engaging their student parents in this effort. It was a joy to watch, and it was apparent that they are co-leaders in this work, and their voices guide and shape your approach to student parents. You always show up with curiosity, creativity, and a deep commitment to learning and making change. The amiable, collaborative way your team works together and with partners like us is really an inspiring model for partnership. They increased their student parent documentation by 61% over this project, so it's amazing. Thank you for your leadership and for demonstrating what is possible in a collaborative effort rooted in authentic relationships, shared purpose, and a deep commitment to student parent success.
Hello again, Teresa Anderson from the Urban Institute. I am so pleased to offer this award and acknowledgement of the City Colleges of Chicago team. The CCC District Office was our formal grantee, but Kennedy King College and Truman College were deep partners that were along for the entire ride, showing how this work can happen and being models across the city. With an anchoring in strong data collected by the district, this team was able to share strategies and innovate in partnership with their student parent co-leaders across college settings. And in this process, we have collectively identified areas where the CCC central office can better support student parents across their institutions, both in terms of data and policies, and where the 7 city colleges of Chicago can learn from each other and deepen their already impressive commitment to both student parent success and meeting students' basic needs across the board. So congratulations to the Chicago team. Thank you so much for the pleasure of being able to work with you.
Great. I've got 2 schools to thank. The first one would be Klamath Community College. So on behalf of the Urban Data to Action team, I'm very excited to present this award to Klamath Community College. The team did exceptionally well at engaging their amazing student parent team member, Shai Bristow, who again, as mentioned, is starting her job teaching as we speak. Shai created a student parent club and engaged parents on campus to elevate their voices, and she deeply helped shape the project. And the rest of the team at KCC did a great job at allowing her to engage heavily on the project and be a big part of it, as well as them being a strong team themselves. So Shai plans to stay in touch with KCC after starting work as a teacher locally. KCC also created a wonderful video retrospective of their D2A grant. in which is showcasing the progress they've made and voices of student parent club members. Lastly, Klamath took a sophisticated approach to collecting parental status through their login nudges and student profiles. So through those methods, they got a really high coverage of parental status and were able to generate substantial data that they have been thoughtfully using to sustain and deepen their work, including as they continue to fundraise for a new on-campus childcare center. Not only has Klamath grown as a team and deepened their commitments to parenting students, but they have also taught us about data collection methods that work well, and they've been a strong and inspirational member of the D2A team who is making great strides. So congratulations to Klamath. Then I'm also going to thank Lane College. So on behalf of the Urban D2A team, again, I'm very excited to present this award to Lane. Lane has done an amazing job, again, at engaging and providing opportunities to their parenting student, Kevin Ralph, who's here today, and who you just heard from on the panel, and who is working towards his law degree. But he played a major role in their capstone presentation today, both in putting it together and thinking about key lessons learned and how to sustain and deepen this work. Kevin was also a deep partner with our team in working on the rubric for authentic student-parent engagement. So the Lane team and Kevin, again, worked together to hold focus groups and field surveys in which they heard from parenting students, built new connections, and helped understand the supports that parenting students on campus could benefit from. They updated their website, made new kid-friendly spaces, and ensured there were more kid-friendly events on campus, and you can see some photos from those in their capstone. They also engaged their faculty and used their data to determine that approximately 28% of the students on their campus are parents. So I'm very proud of the work that the Lane team did. It was a pleasure to work with them and can't wait to see what the future holds for them and for Kevin. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sophia Idijemfi, and I am a research analyst with the Urban Institute and also a co-lead in coaching SD Mesa and Bakersfield. And so I will be presenting these awards to Bakersfield College and San Diego Mesa. So I will start with Bakersfield. On behalf of the Urban Institute team, I'm pleased to present this award to Bakersfield College. Bakersfield has put in the work in not only thinking, but also being intentional about collecting their data on their student parents on campus. They've been intentional in co-leading with their student parent in designing and collecting the data. They have also done a wonderful job involving their student parents in all efforts of data collection and provided them with the opportunity to co-lead in these efforts. And so we are proud of all of you and your accomplishments and looking forward to see you continue this work in the future. So congratulations, Bakersfield. So next stop is San Diego Mesa. Unfortunately, they had to leave and catch their flights. So on behalf of the Urban D2A team, I am honored to present this award to San Diego Mesa College. SD Mesa has been a leader in this work and its efforts, but they have continued to show their dedication to supporting their student parents throughout this project. It's been wonderful seeing the next steps and initiatives they have taken to continue to support their student parents, but also get buy-in at their college and external partners as well. We are excited for what they're going to do in the future, and we hope to see them continue to be leaders in this work. So congratulations to San Diego Mesa. And Anna.
Hi, good morning. Good afternoon. My name is Anna Fleming. I'm a research analyst, and I'm at the Urban Institute, and I'm presenting this on behalf of Mary Ann, who is also the lead coach for 3 of our colleges. She unfortunately had to catch a plane, so she's not here today for this portion. But starting with Rogue, on behalf of both myself and Marianne and the rest of the D2A team, I'm thrilled to present this award to you. Despite losing key IR staff early in the project, Rogue rebuilt your team and in just the past 5 months has collected student parenting data on more than 3/4 of their students. Their capstone shows how effectively they've used this data to support student parents. And this award really celebrates the team's resilience, dedication, and get it done spirit. The whole team, we are so proud of all you're accomplished, and we are looking forward to seeing what you will continue to do in the future. So congratulations. Next, I'd like to present this award to Southwestern Oregon Community College. What makes this team exceptional is that while they were collecting and analyzing quantitative data on student parents, they were also running focus groups to hear directly from student parents. Their capstone demonstrates not only strong data skills, but also a deep commitment to understanding and supporting student parents. And this award really recognizes that dedication, creativity, thoughtful approach that they took during this project. We are so proud of all you're accomplished and the impact you're making and will continue to make. So congratulations. And then finally, I'm myself and on behalf of Marianne, very excited to present the final award to Treasure Valley Community College. TVCC's dedication to highlighting and amplifying parenting student voices, as evidenced in their very powerful capstone video, has been present in every step of their participation in this campaign. The team's ability to recognize and name both short and long-term supports needed to strengthen parenting student wellness and success at TVCC is a direct result of their thoughtful engagement with the student population. We look forward to seeing their impact both in the short term and the long term. So thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ariella Meltzer, a research analyst at the Urban Institute. And last but certainly not least, I'm so excited to present this award to California Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo. Cal Poly's team are national champions in this field and are doing the heavy lifting to make parenting students visible not only on their campus, but on campuses across California and across the country. They've done incredible work institutionalizing student parent data collection and created an amazing website and public data dashboard from this data that's serving as an example for many colleges everywhere. This team is tireless in their advocacy and ensures that their student parents are present and engaged every step of the way. Congratulations to Tina, Courtney, Rob, Kimberly, Maya, Chelsea, Ashley, and everyone at Cal Poly who has been a part of this effort. We're so excited to see your continued leadership in this work. Congratulations. And I'll pass it back to Kate to conclude.
I am so glad you got to hear from our staff. So we are ending this event with gratitude, and I'd love a round of applause for our staff. We would not have been able to do so well in this campaign without the number of staff we've had. We have Kimberly online holding down the fort, making people giggle with her chats. And then Marianne has already had to leave, but wouldn't have been able to be as successful or have such a great team and bond and collaboration without this great staff. So in terms of also additional gratitude, we really know that these colleges are now leaders in this space, and so please connect with these colleges, connect with these student parents, and learn from their efforts so that we can continue to grow and scale this work. We're really excited to take this effort to Texas, and ultimately we are proud of this work for the impact that it will have on environments and outcomes for student parents and their families. Supporting student parents is good for families, student parents, colleges, communities, and states. Thank you so much.